Now we want to hear the story of Teresa Neumann, and Sarah has prepared to share that one with us.
Okay, thank you. Teresa Neumann was born in Bavaria in 1898, and when she was 20, and she was, again, born to a very simple family, a very pious family, and when she was 20, she was helping her father put out a fire in a barn, and she was injured, and she became blind and paralyzed. And she regained her sight miraculously in 1923 through prayers of Saint Teresa, the Little Flower, who was being canonized in Rome at the time, and Saint Teresa Neumann had a picture of Saint Teresa, the Little Flower, in her room, and she experienced the flowers coming from the picture onto her, and it healed her completely. She also was known for the stigmata, or the sacred wounds of Christ, and they appeared in 1926 on Teresa's head, breast, hands, and feet. The first one appeared just above her heart, and she tried to keep it secret, but she began to, on each Friday, on the Fridays of every week thereafter, she would pass through the Passion of Christ, suffering in her own body all his historic agony. And so she would actually, and I think it was 27 out of 57 Fridays, she would experience the Passion of Christ. Knowing only ordinary, simple German of her village, during her Friday trances, Teresa would utter phrases which scholars have identified as ancient Aramaic. At appropriate times in revision, she would speak Hebrew and Greek, also Portuguese, French, and other languages. And by ecclesiastical permission, there were several times under close scientific observation, a Dr. Fritz Gerlich, editor of the Protestant German newspaper, went to her village to expose the Catholic fraud, unquote, but ended up by reverently writing her biography. And I wanted to read something from a book here written by Albert Vogel, who spent a lot of time with her about her stigmata. The way the blood flows from the wounds of her feet defies the laws of nature. The mystic lies in bed on her back, and the feet are at a 90-degree angle with the toes pointing towards the ceiling. When the first drops of blood appear, when Christ is being nailed to the cross, her feet bleed. But the drops of blood do not run off the sides of the feet or over the ankles, as one might expect. Instead, the blood moves upward toward the toes, just as Christ did as he hung on the cross. When Teresa cries normal tears as she watches Jesus being accused and mistreated, her tears turn into blood in a split second when Jesus is harmed in such a manner that his blood commences to flow. I've been present at several of her Friday's ecstasies. On October 13, 1950, my wife and I observed her suffering for the better part of an hour and saw with our own eyes the constant flow of blood from her eyes, hands, and head. At noon, my brother and I returned to her room for the third time and beheld again the sight before us, with collapsed cheeks, hardly recognizable, sitting in bed, a true profoundly affected, serious figure of sorrows. Her pale, yellow face encircled with bloody tears, her eyes pasted shut with her own blood. So she would go through, and then at Easter, she would start this experience of Thursday night, and then she would, on Sunday morning, when Jesus was on the cross, she would die. No pulse, no respiration, no heartbeat, for about 45 minutes, and then she would come back to life. She also, she went completely without food or drink, except for the daily swallowing of one small consecrated wafer, and she would take that in the morning from 1923 to 1963. And when someone asked her about that, she said that I only need the light of God to nourish me. And apparently her skin, she would, perspire through her skin, and it was very soft. And she would lose during the stigmata about 20 pounds, and then she would gain it back instantly. People would come, and she could read their minds. She could read in the different languages of their minds. She could tell if people were true or not true. The Nazis at one point came after her, but they never really bothered her again. One man came to visit her and had a picture of Hitler in his pocket, and this was the time when she was in her ecstasy, so her eyes were closed. She reached into his pocket and tore the picture out, and said that something about that he was a bad person.